Let's go live to our security and defence editor, Deborah Haynes, who's in northern Israel for us this morning. Deborah, great to have you with us as always. Why don't we start with that breaking news as it relates to the Hamas head of government? What more can you tell us about that particular person, and why are we learning about it now if it, as reported, took place some months ago?
Yeah, they're good questions. So the Israel Defense Forces have literally in the last few minutes just released this statement saying that they killed Rawhi Mushtaha in what they describe as a joint operation by the IDF and the Air Force. It does take time. It can take time to confirm deaths. With the killing of Hassan Nasrallah, that was announced. That was confirmed and announced pretty quickly. But in this case, the passage of time maybe points to Israel needing more time to ensure and confirm that he was killed, along with some other senior-ranking officials, including the person who held the security portfolio for the political bureau of Hamas and other senior members. The Israeli military are claiming that Hamas did not confirm the death of Rawhi Mushtaha because they didn't want to damage morale. Now that obviously we wait to see what Hamas says and how they respond to this statement. But the military go on to say that he was one of Hamas's most senior operatives, and alongside Yahya Sinwar, who is the leader of Hamas, the two of them served time in an Israeli prison together, and the Israeli military saying that the two of them established Hamas's general security mechanism, and that he was considered to be the most senior figure in the Hamas political bureau in the Gaza Strip. So he's a very, very senior figure, and his death is yet another blow for Hamas if it is confirmed that that is the case.
Just crossing, by the way, whilst you're talking, Iran's SNN news agency says one of Iran's Revolutionary Guards was killed. A military consultant for the IRGC was killed due to an Israeli attack in Syria. That just crossed now. Before we get to what's going on in Lebanon, I'm interested in your take on specifically Israel's response to Iran in light of that particular piece of information I just told you. But the longer we wait for a more full-scale or full-hearted response from Israel to Iran, does it make it less likely that it will happen or not? Would we still have expected them to take a couple of days following the missiles from Iran 24 or 36 hours ago?
Given everything that's been said by the Israeli government, it will definitely happen. There was even thinking that given they knew and anticipated that Iran would seek to strike at them in response for so much damage that Israel has caused and inflicted on hezbollah, which is very closely aligned with Iran, but also directly on Iranian interests, such as the Iranian ambassador to Lebanon, who was wounded in the pager and walkie-talkie attack just over 2 weeks ago, and also the killing, you'll remember back in July, of Ismail Haniyeh, the political head of Hamas, who was killed while he was on, as an official guest, a visit to Tehran, and the assassination happened in the Iranian capital. And from that moment, actually, Israel would have been anticipating some kind of Iranian response. There have been analysts that have speculated that actually the lack of response from Iran at that time might have emboldened Israel to go so strong and hard as it has done in the last couple of weeks with its operations. There is no doubt, given the climate and given the momentum that Israel feels is on its side, that it will be using the fact that Iran launched almost 200 ballistic missiles at Israel as absolute justification for a direct strike back at Iran. And in terms of the timing, though, I think the Prime Minister has said that he will be talking to the US President, and actually Joe Biden was asked directly yesterday whether he would support an Israeli strike on Iranian nuclear sites, which has been something that has been speculated. He gave a very short and direct answer, no. However, there are many other strategic targets that Israel could seek to take out in an operation. And also, when it comes to actually the ability to defend your airspace, Israel has, in the past few weeks, taken on and taken out one of the Iranian air defence systems that is actually, it's a Syrian air defence system in Syria that might have potentially been used to sort of like take out aircraft that could be launching a strike on Iran. There's obviously a huge amount of geography distance that you have to think about if Israel decides not to launch ballistic missiles at Iran, but maybe to launch airstrikes with jets and cruise missiles or larger ordnance, then that takes a big logistical challenge because it's about 1,000 miles away, and obviously flying over hostile terrain such as Syria for the most direct route. And so Israel will have been thinking about how best to ensure the safe passage of any aircraft that it does decide to send on any future potential operation directly against Iran.
And Deborah, just to wrap things up, gauge for us the latest in terms of Israel's attacks and their responses with Hezbollah and Lebanon. Over the last couple of days, what level of success, if that's the right word to use, has Israel had in its attacks, and coming at what level of collateral damage and human cost?
It's very difficult to gauge what's actually happening on the ground. We aren't on the ground. Lebanon, just to give you some more sense of geography, is about 5 miles in that direction behind me, and that's where it seems a lot of the from in the area where we are, and obviously we've only got a limited view. That's where a lot of the Israeli firepower is being directed. Every now and again, we will hear booms of outgoing rounds. We'll see smoke going up in the air. But actually, having said that, we did hear this morning what sounded like the thud of airstrikes in sort of that direction too. So maybe sort of a sense that it's quite maybe a wide operation. But Israel has been very clear that it's a limited incursion. So in terms of the depth that its troops will be going, we're told it's only going to be just across the border. But any land offensive is so much more complicated than what Israel has been doing, for example, in Beirut, where it's been striking from a distance with jets. You've got troops on the ground in hostile terrain that will be known very well by the Hezbollah fighters that have sworn to resist any Israeli offensive. And yesterday we had the news of 8 Israeli soldiers who were killed in combat in South Lebanon. And then there was also from the Israeli military confirmation that a number of other Israeli troops were severely injured. And that really kind of underlines the risk that Israel's forces are taking as they move into the area. But it also, I think, gives an indication of the strength of feeling and the desire that they feel that Israel feels it has to try to push Hezbollah, not just the forces themselves, but militant infrastructure, rocket launchers, weapon sites that have been set up just across the border into Lebanon, back past the Litani River, and to try to stop Hezbollah from being able to fire into northern Israel, which is what they've been doing for almost a year now, forcing tens of thousands of Israeli civilians on this side to flee. The big question, though, is whether or not that can possibly be achieved by a limited ground incursion. And as Israel knows all too well, a much larger land operation in Lebanon carries huge risk. And they've tried it before and it hasn't ended in success.